On this adventure with the Rock Marauder, I put my body on the line looking for fossils. Whew. As they say, if it were easy, everyone would do it. In any case, welcome back to another adventure with the Rock Marauder. I am the Rock Marauder, and today I'm walking along the Mississippi River. And you might be asking yourself, what kind of fossils are there to be found along a river such as this, especially since I'm in the heart of a major city? Well, to be quite honest, I'm not entirely sure. Regardless of what I find, on this adventure I have to be extra careful because as you can see, I'm walking along some pretty dangerous cliffs. And while I have some idea of what I can find around this area, how likely it is that I will find what I came here to look for remains to be seen. But in all honesty, that only makes me more excited for this adventure. One thing I'm sure to find lots of is trash. Like I said, I'm in the heart of a major city, and this trail that I'm walking along is frequented by hundreds of people every day, some of whom are up to some less than permissible activities. But that's not the main reason why I'm here. I'm here for this. This is the first indication I've found today that tells me I'm in the right spot. And you might be wondering what exactly I'm looking at here. Let me show you a better example. The types of rocks that I'm most interested in today are limestone and dolomite. And you can see within this chunk of rock right here is a tiny shell, which tells me that this particular rock formed in a prehistoric marine environment. Further indication comes in the form of my first find of the day. This is a Bryozoan, which is not to be confused with coral. It might not look like much, so let's see if I can find some better fossils. But this one's still going in the pack. Most of what I found at my first stop was locked away in rock that was as hard as concrete. And there's no way I'm going to start hammering away at it on the edge of a cliff. So it's time to move on for better prospects. And it was at about this time that I figured I should take my search off the main trail. And boy, am I glad I did. I was already liking this spot way more. Like I was saying, most of the fossils I found at the first stop were stuck in the cliff face with no reasonable way for me to extract them. But this area has hundreds of fragments of rock loosely poking out of the pile of muddy clay that I can easily pick out by hand or with the help of my rock hammer. And right away I'm greeted with a fossil? To be quite honest, I'm not sure if this is a fossil. It looks like it could be one, and despite all of my post-adventure research, I still can't be quite certain. But this one I am very certain about. This is part of a crinoid. Hopefully I can find a better example later on. Putting that rock hammer to good use. Here is a great example of a Brachiopod. Unfortunately, this one is stuck in a chunk that's a bit too big for me to bring home. Speaking of which, I'm gonna have one heck of a time cleaning my boots when I get home. Oh boy. All part of the fun, I suppose. So, as I was saying, the rocks that I'm looking at, which contain fossils, formed in a marine environment, meaning that at some point a long time ago, more than 400 million years ago to be more precise, this whole area was underwater in a shallow part of an ocean, which would explain why there are so many fossilized creatures and critters. These rocks are part of the Platteville Formation, which extends through a considerable part of the upper Midwest in the United States. Not to bore you with the details or anything, but it's good to have a sense of where you are and what you're looking at. Which brings me to my next find. This is a lovely little chunk of fossils that are all still stuck together. You can see the myriad of fragments of Bryozoan, Crinoids, and I'm sure there's some shells in there as well. I hope this clues you in a little bit to the abundance of life that was present in this area at that point in time. Alright, this is a pretty cool find. I was really hoping to find something like this, and here we go. This is a gastropod shell. Gastropods are part of the mollusk group of animals, which include snails, slugs, clams, oysters, octopuses, and the like. So you can think of this one as the modern day snail's great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparent. Maybe add a couple more greats just to be safe. Like I said, I was hoping to find a better Bryozoan fossil, and I found one just here. Bryozoan are also called moss animals, and still exist today, but this one was a very ancient relative of those. While they do look like coral, they are not the same, although you can find them living amongst coral reefs. Here is another lively conglomeration of fossils, and this one has some fantastic examples of crinoid rings which I found earlier. And I cannot forget to watch my step the whole time. As you can see here, I'm bracing my foot up against this tree because I'm right on the edge of a pretty steep cliff. I really dig this find because it's another Bryozoan, although I believe it's a different species, or it might just be a different part of the Bryozoan that I haven't found before. And no Rock Marauder adventure would be complete without a piece of glass threatening to cut a part of my body. At this point, I kid you not, every single rock I picked up contained fossils, and almost nothing but fossils, like a graveyard of ancient organisms. It's kinda dark if you think about it, but at the same time it's a fascinating snapshot of life on Earth a very long time ago. Rock. After rock, after rock, after rock. Nothing but fossils. And I finally found the Crinoid fossil I had been looking for. Unfortunately, it's not a complete Crinoid, but rather the stalk of a juvenile. Remember all those circular discs I had been finding that I called crinoids? Well, if you put enough of those discs together, you get this long stem. Crinoids are odd little creatures that are related to sea cucumbers and starfish. Definitely the POC find of the day so far. After spending a good half hour or so at that one very lucrative location, I begrudgingly decided it was time to move on. And I didn't know it yet, but this rather inconspicuous looking trail would turn out to be one hell of a precarious side adventure. What I thought was going to be a steady grade down a little path quickly turned into a steep and slippery slope riddled with roots threatening to break my ankles, rocks ready to smash my knees and elbows, and wet mud eager to send me sliding. I should have guessed that this was not going to be the best idea since it had just rained the day before. But by the time I realized this, I had already made too much progress down the hill and I wasn't sure if I could make it back up the same way I went down. So it was me and my friend Gravity trying to safely make it down to the bottom of this hill. And let's just say I didn't have the utmost confidence in either of us. But that doesn't stop me from picking up trash when I see it. Unfortunately, the hill had other plans. That was too close. Thankfully, I made it out mostly unscathed. And let's see why I even bothered to come down here in the first place. I had made it down to the river, and I was hoping to find some more fossils, but instead I just found trash. And I found lots and lots of it. At the very least, I had a chance to wash the mud off my hands and collect myself after that interesting adventure. Of course, I wanted to collect as much trash as I possibly could, but it soon came to my realization that I was ill-prepared for my quote-unquote public service. The amount of trash along this beach was quite disheartening, and I knew there was no way I could manage it all on my own this trip, so I'll have to come back more prepared next time. On the bright side of things, I had discovered an alternative path that led back up the hill, and this one seemed much less dangerous than the one I chose for the descent. But before I summit, I want to stop and show you this unique feature of the river valley. This is the St. Peter Sandstone. What makes this sandstone different, as you can already tell, is how soft it is. And when I say soft, I mean if you were to hold a chunk of it, you could crush it with your bare hand. Pretty neat, right? As I make my way up, I stumble across one of the more odd pieces of trash I've found in a while. Someone's car keys. They look as though they've been sitting for quite some time as there's no key attached. And my guess is that they got washed here and were dumped over the side of this cliff where no one was ever going to find them. I think it's refreshing that there are still these little undiscovered corners of our world, even if you are in the middle of a city like I am, and I guarantee that 99% of people have no idea any of these things exist, like these fossils that I'm finding today. At any rate, I had found my way back just off the main trail when I came across this plastic plate filled with paint. I find it strange that someone would come out here to paint and then forget to take the paint with them. But as soon as I turned my attention back to the ground, I had found a wonderful little fossil. This is a complete Brachiopod, which is not to be confused with a mollusk such as a clam, oyster, or scallop. Brachiopods still exist today, but are found in cold, deep water, so humans rarely interact with them. I thought that it was really neat to find a fossil that was so complete and wasn't contained within its host rock. At first glance of this rock, I thought there was nothing special about it, until I took a closer look and noticed something unusual. So, like any good geologist, I grab my hammer and I go to work. I need to be extra careful here as to not damage the specimen contained within. And check it out, I was able to extract another lovely Gastropod fossil, and I'm so happy that I was able to get it out without damaging it. This one, of course, is a different species than the one I found earlier. And I was also able to save the piece that it came out of, so you can see how they fit together, the fossil and the cast. And as soon as I looked up, I noticed that I was surrounded by rocks that contained what I can only imagine to be thousands and thousands of fossils just like the one I had just found. And even though I was not on the search for agates, I of course stumble upon one. And this one's pretty neat. It's small, but it's got some really nice lines and it's very translucent. This small landing on the edge of the cliff turned out to be a treasure trove as I picked up yet another complete Brachiopod shell. This one is smaller than the first one I found, but still extremely beautiful. Speaking of treasure, while I'm all up for digging up lost relics, I'm not terribly keen on finding trash buried where I should be finding fossils. And at this point my hands were getting pretty full, so I made my way back up towards the street to dispose of what trash I had found thus far. With a quick head adjustment, I was ready to call it a day, but I knew there was one last stop I had to make before leaving. And if you listen closely, you might be able to tell what lies ahead. A secret oasis hidden away from the urban hustle and bustle. There aren't too many places left in the world where you can have such beautiful scenery all to yourself, even if for just a moment. This is why I love geology, because it allows me to do what I love to do most in places as beautiful and serene as this. And it's not always about what I find and can take home with me, but rather being able to enjoy the magnificence of the environments where the geology is on full display. So anyway, I tripped and fell in a hole. That's what I get for pontificating while hiking on wet mud. Thankfully I wasn't hurt, and I tried to play it cool as there were two other hikers coming down the hill at that very moment. And I stopped to pick up a few more pieces of trash as I make my way back towards the starting point of my adventure. I'm not sure who's brushing their teeth down here, but they should really take their toothpaste with them afterwards. And you know you're in the 21st century when you start finding more vape cartridges than burnt cigarettes. And just like that, I was right back to where I started. I was a bit out of my element with the fossil hunting today as I am a novice paleontologist at best, so thank you for bearing with me. And thank you to everyone who watched. I'm really enjoying all these adventures and I hope to continue doing more. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing, and check out my other videos. I'll see you on my next adventure somewhere down the road. This is the Rock Marauder signing off once again.